Thank you very much too for honoring our invite. So let's get straight to it. So how has the campaign been so far? How is it on the grounds?
Well, it's been hectic and very stressful as expected, but if you ask me, I would say it's been very productive for the National Democratic Congress. Our campaign style this year has been significantly different from the campaigns we've seen the NDC wage in previous election years. This time around, the focus of the campaign has been more of a retail campaign, and we've done so on multiple fronts. The flag bearer is moving. Same with the running mate, the national chairman, other leading figures of the party are all moving. And so everyone is involved. We focused on reaching every Ghanaian in their communities and in every nook and cranny of the country through various means. There's been a de-emphasis on large rallies, which have been the common feature with previous elections. And this time around, the focus has been on community engagements, retail campaigning, reaching out to people in the markets, in the churches, in schools, and so on. And so far, much better. What I am seeing personally is a significant improvement on what I saw in the year 2020 in terms of our campaign strategy and methodology. The feedback from the people has also been overwhelmingly positive. Our message has been well accepted. I believe that a lot more people are getting to understand some of the issues that they thought were a little bit technical or difficult to understand. And so we are very confident of a resounding victory come 7 December 2024. So yes, it's been hectic, but I would say it's been very fruitful and productive.
Thank you very much. Hectic and fruitful. On MySpace or on Twitter, I've been doing some research for the past 2 or 3 years. I always ask random questions and I always do polls. You find me asking questions like, if you get the chance to meet the president today, what are some questions you ask? And I read a lot of response. Sometimes I'm doing polls, and from what I gathered over the past few years, I realized that a lot of the youth are looking for employment, even if not for employment, good paying jobs for those who are working. But unemployment has really been a major issue. So, and one more thing too, outside unemployment is prosecution of people that take the state funds and steal from the state. And I think two of your policies, and the policies of the NDC address that, which is the 24-hour economy and the Operation Oral, which is the Operation Recover All Loot. So if you could please go into the main two policies for us, I'll be grateful.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. And I'm excited that we are starting with these two important issues, because if you ask me, these two issues constitute the bane of our country today. Like you rightly indicated, the issue of jobs remain the topmost priority of the Ghanaian, particularly the youth of this country, who constitute the majority of the demographics of Ghana. Unfortunately, in the last nearly 8 years, we've seen an astronomical increase in the rate of unemployment in Ghana. Unemployment has always been a challenge. It's not a new phenomenon. We should all be objective enough to admit that. But we should also be objective to admit that unemployment has worsened. And it has worsened because in the last 8 years, we've not had the government roll out the right policies and programs that can lead to economic expansion that create jobs for the teeming unemployed youth of Ghana. That is the problem we are grappling with. And so if you look at the data published by the Ghana Statistical Service, the rate of unemployment in the year 2016, per the Ghana Living Standard Survey 6, was 8.4%. As we speak today, the rate of unemployment is over 14.7%. I say over 14.7% because the 14.7% figure was put out by the GSS sometime in February of this year. And it is very clear that that figure has increased. To put it in nominal terms, in 2016, the total unemployed population of Ghana hovered around 1 million, 1.2 million. Today, that figure is inching very close to 2 million. And you have over 300,000 entering the labor market every year, with very few of them getting absorbed by the economy. So this is a major problem. It is said that the devil finds work for the idle hand. And so any country whose population is youth dominated and which has the kind of unemployment crisis that we have on our hands will have to sit up and think outside the box, come up with pragmatic solutions to deal with that problem. Either than that, that ticking time bomb of high unemployment rates will explode in the process of time. And that is the position where Ghana finds itself. And that is why even the national security under this government has said that unemployment remains the number one threat to security in Ghana. And so cognizance, in recognition of this challenge, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama and the NDC have made the issue of job creation and our number one priority. And so if you pick our 2024 manifesto, you will see that the overarching message is job creation. From page 1 till the last page, every policy, program, promise, measure is tailored and aimed at creating decent and sustainable jobs for the people of this country. But of course, the flagship policy among all these job creation initiatives is the 24-hour economy strategy. That is the game changer John Mahama and the NDC are offering to sustainably address the problem of high unemployment. Now, let me just simplify it. During the launch of our youth manifesto, the young guys gave us a very simple way of breaking down that policy that some think is technical. And this is what he said. I like it so much. 24-hour economy simply means 3 jobs, 3 shifts, 3 people. So, one, they call it Formula 133. So, 1 job being done by 3 people in 3 shifts. So, at the end of the day, you end up creating 3 jobs instead of 1. Now, the rationale for this policy is anchored on the need for increased production and productivity. You see, our country currently finds itself in economic bankruptcy. What that simply means is that our country has become insolvent. For the first time in the last 5 decades, our country has defaulted on its debt obligations. We can't service our debt, simply put. Our debt is unsustainable. And that is why we've been locked out of the capital market. We can't go on the capital market to borrow. And that is why many nations are no longer willing to lend to us, because we can't even service the monies we already owe them. And one of the measures of the debt sustainability of every nation is what is called your debt to GDP ratio. The GDP is a sum total of all the incomes of everybody in the nation, including the government. So it is more or less your net worth. If you compare that to your debts, and that is more than 60% per international standards, your debt is unsustainable. And by December 2022, we had crossed 100%. we hit debt to GDP ratio of 104%. Even with the ongoing debt restructuring and the crude financial haircuts that has been imposed on bondholders and persons who have lent to the government, debt to GDP is still over 80%. So for us to come out of this economic quandary and bankruptcy, we will have to expand the economy and increase the GDP of Ghana so that as the GDP increases, your debt to GDP automatically decreases and the debt becomes solvent. And the added advantage is that because the economy is expanding within the productive sectors, you are able to create sustainable jobs for your people. Now, how do you increase your GDP? The GDP is a function of the incomes of the people, and therefore is a function of production. So you need to produce more than what we are producing now. Because the more you produce, the more revenue the state is able to generate. And so what are we saying? What we are saying is simple. The 8-hour traditional work shift system we have now is not enough for Ghana to produce at the level we ought to produce so that we can expand the economy, increase the GDP, reduce our debt to GDP, make the debt sustainable, and through that productive economic expansion, create decent and well-paying jobs for our people. So instead of working 8 hours, we are saying we won't be lazy when John Mahama becomes the president, effective the 7th of January 2025. We will immediately roll out a 24-hour economy strategy, which is going to ensure that both the private sector and certain critical agencies in the public sector will run 24 hours. If run 24 hours, it means that we are going to have 2 additional shifts, work shifts or work schedules in addition to the already existing 8-hour work schedule. And so we are going to work for more hours. That means increased productivity. That means increased production. That means an expanded economy with an increase and expanded GDP. That means more revenue for government. And through that, you are able to create more jobs because the 2 additional work shifts will create 2 additional jobs for people to do. So that is basically the meaning of 24-hour economy. So under this policy, we are going to pass the first of its kind Employment Act, which is going to be the law backing the 24-hour economy policy, which will set out the regulatory framework for the policy, the rights of workers, the fact that a worker is not supposed to work more than 8 hours. And if the worker is working for more than 8 hours, he should be entitled to overtime. And if the employer does not pay the overtime, this will be the question. And how that overtime is supposed to be calculated. And how everything is supposed to be regulated. All these details will be contained in the Employment Act, of course, passed in consultation with labor and other stakeholders. And we are going to provide private businesses who are going to be the main drivers of the 24-hour economy policy with the needed tax incentives, financing support, security services support, and tax incentives, financing support, security support, okay, to ensure that they reduce their cost of doing business, their cost of operation, and they are able to operate within a safe and secured environment, even the night. Because without these interventions, it's going to be very difficult for businesses to round the clock. And so there are many businesses in Ghana today who have the capacity to run round the clock. The things they produce, be it goods or services, are in high demand. We have demand for all the things we consume in Ghana, primarily food. Demand for tin tomatoes, demand for rice, demand for fried oil, demand for cement, demand for tiles, demand for POP, demand for all manner of stuffs, biscuits, flour. There is high demand. And because we are not able to meet even half of the demand, we end up importing everything, which ends up putting pressure on the currency, causing our national currency to depreciate all the time. And so we are that these businesses in agro processing, the pharmaceutical companies, there are many drugs and medication that we need not import. We can produce them locally. John Mahama tried that under his first term when he gave a stimulus package of $25 million to the Tobingos, the NS chemists, and the farmers and all that, which led to the ramping up the production of certain medications in Ghana, including HIV retroviral drugs and so on. We are going to give them the same support, reduce their cost of doing business so that they will be encouraged to run 24/7. And that means that if they are producing 1,000 cartons of product X, by running 24/7, they will be producing 30,000 cartons. If I'm employing 500 people based on the one shift system they have, with a 24-hour economy and with 3 shifts of 8 hours each, chances are that they are likely to employ over 1,000 to 1,500 people. So through that, we will be increasing production, we'll be increasing productivity, we'll be increasing revenue for government, and we'll be increasing jobs in a sustainable way. Because the jobs will be linked to value. You will not just be employing people doing nothing. So these are the incentives we'll be providing for the private sector. And we've listed the sectors that we will be focusing on, even though there will be no limits, strictly speaking, for the implementation of the policy. It will have a ripple effect for all sectors. But primarily, agro processing will be key. We need to process what we eat and consume in Ghana. Pharmaceuticals will be very key. Construction will be key. You travel outside the country and certain major construction works take place in the night. Why can't we do same in Ghana? Waste management in the advanced jurisdictions, the collection of waste, the processing of waste happens round the clock, particularly in the night. We can do same in Ghana. So these sectors, manufacturing, quarrying, all that, we will be supporting them to reduce their cost of production, to scale up production, and to encourage them to run 24/7. For the public sector, our emphasis will be on the essential government services or public institutions whose services are in high demand, but who have huge consumer traffics. So, for example, you pick passport office, you pick DVLA, you pick the ports. The services of all these public institutions are in high demand. But when you go there, you see huge consumer traffics. You go to the port today, there are cargoes and containers stuck there for weeks and for months, even with the new MPS terminal, because the port operates 8 hours. MPS run 24/7, but because customs does not run 24/7 and the banks don't run 24/7, it is not seamless. So there are still bottlenecks. Takrade, you don't have not anything like 24-hour operation. We want the ports to run 24 hours seamlessly. And that means apart from the GAPOA itself, MPS running 24/7, customs will have to run 24/7, and the financial institutions there will have to run 24/7. So people can make payments to clear their goods at any time of the day and transport the goods in the night when traffic is even low, so that it doesn't unnecessarily inconvenience the people. You go to passport office, even today with online passport application, thanks to the ex-Wal NDC Mahama government, which introduced that in 2016 under the leadership of then Foreign Minister Honorable Hannah Tete. Even in spite of that, you apply for a passport today, it can take you 3 months, 4 months, in some cases more, before you get a passport. Why? It's simple. Even though the application is online and seamless, the processing of the application is done by people who work on site physically. And these people work only 8 hours. They are supposed to go to work at 8. They don't even go on time. They are supposed to take a 1 hour break. We all know that sometimes it stretches beyond that. They are supposed to close at 5, some close before that. So even the 8 hours they're supposed to work, there are a lot of inefficiencies in there. So the processing of the applications delay. By introducing the 24-hour passport services, you can have people working at our passport services either physically or remotely 24/7. That means more jobs for young people who are sitting home. But that also means better and efficient services for the people. And more importantly, that means more revenue for government. Because the more passport applications you're able to process within a limited time, the more revenue you're able to generate. So this will be our focus. It is the same for DVLA. And there are many government institutions like that. And there should be no reason why they cannot run 24/7. What is lacking is a deliberate government strategy, a deliberate government intervention, supporting these private players and these public institutions to run 24/7 to lead to increased production, higher productivity, and more sustainable jobs for young people. So this is where I was on the 24-hour economy. And if you will allow me, maybe you may want to come in with questions before I go to
Yeah.
the next issue of oral.
Okay, so before you go to the oral, I would like to know at the moment the minimum wage in Ghana stands at 18 cedis, 15 pesos. With the 24-hour economy, is there going to be an increase in the minimum wage, or is it just going to be maintained?
Well, of course, the minimum wage has to be increased. If you look at cost of living in Ghana today and you look at our minimum wage, it's clearly an insult to the sensibilities of the working class. So that obviously has to be increased. But that is mutually exclusive from the implementation of the 24-hour economy, because the minimum wage apply to even employers and employees who will not necessarily be running 24 hours. So that is a separate matter, but it is certainly an issue that the next NDC Mahama government will be working at. If you look at our manifesto, we've indicated that clearly, that the current minimum wage is impractical and will have to be reviewed. And it's one of the things we'll be doing immediately when we assume the reins of power on the 7th January 2025.
Okay, thank you very much. Austin, would you like to ask anything on the 24-hour economy before you move to oral?
Yeah. Good evening,
Good
Sammy.
evening, Austin.
Yeah. What I would want to ask is about costing, because you would better appreciate where Ghana finds itself, looking at the challenges we face with our finances, and also we are under a world IMF program which continues into 2026, 2027. Also, we suspended our payment of our debt November 2022, and we are going to resume, and we are paying $600 million next year, $1 billion and something in subsequent years. So we have challenges with our finances. The IMF program even says we should be um, increasing taxes on electricity so that we can make up for that shortfall. Now, you've not costed to us how much all these freebies or incentives, sorry, for lack of better word, would be given to private sector to boost them would cost. And also, when you talk about time of use tariff, what does it involve? How much would it reduce for those who would be working at such hours? And how much is it costing the taxpayer? Has it been costed and all that?
Well, at the tail end, your line was a bit rough, but I think you asked two questions. The first has to do with the costing for the 24-hour economy policy implementation, and the second one has to do with the time of use tariff and how much that is going to cost. Well, let me start with the costing for the 24-hour economy policy. You see, 24-hour economy we are talking about is not a program or an initiative in the nature of, say, health insurance, free SHS, Okay, that you say, okay, we think that the population of persons who sit for the BEC is X. Over the years, we have a pass rate of 70%. And so if all things remain constant, then we expect that Y will pass next year. And averagely, the school fees of every SHS student is A. So then the cost of free SHS is Y times A. You can do that for certain programs and initiatives. But for the 24-hour economy, you can't do that. The reason is that the 24-hour economy is not an end in itself. It's a means to an end. It is a strategy. So it is supposed to be the means by which government's job creation initiatives will be implemented. So you cannot say that within 1 year, 24-hour economy will cost X. What we are very clear in our minds about is this. For everything the government will be losing within the short term as a result of the incentives will be providing the private sector in the form of lower or cheaper tariffs, through time of use tariffs. And I forgot that one. Thank you for reminding me. So in terms of what we lose through cheaper tariffs, in terms of what we may lose through tax incentives, we are very sure that the dividends we will reap from the policy or the strategy will far outweigh whatever incentives government will be giving the private sector. So for example, already in Ghana, every year, the government gives out tax exemptions. As I speak to you, one of the running issues we've had with the NPP in Parliament has been the issue of tax exemptions. Now, one of the reasons why they are seeking to recall Parliament is so that they can push some tax exemptions through. And that started from 600 million. We push it down to 400 million. And as I speak to you, it's hovering around 300 million in tax exemptions alone. And they claim these tax exemptions are for 1D1F factories. We all know that is not true. Okay. Because the tax exemption come a gig, you know, an avenue for corruption and kickbacks. But that is a topic for another day. Now, the problem with the tax exemption regime in Ghana is that we're already giving the tax exemptions. But who are we giving the tax exemptions to? We're giving the tax exemptions to multinationals who end up repatriating their profits outside Ghana. We are giving it to people who are not even, government is not even regulating what they are doing to ensure that what they are doing is beneficial to us in terms of how many people they employ, in terms of the repatriation of their profit, in terms of the value Ghanaians derive from the businesses of all these people who are enjoying tax exemptions. So the tax exemption regime we already have is not beneficial. So if the NDC says that we will give tax incentives to businesses operating 24/7, it's nothing new. For which reason somebody will say that, oh, this is going to cost the state so much money, cost it. Because you're doing it anyway. But what we are going to do differently is that we are going to streamline the tax exemption regime and make sure that instead of distributing tax exemption like biscuits, Fuado's brother-in-law wants to build a hotel at Airport City called Pullman Hotel. And he's giving a tax exemption to the tune of over 25 million cedis. A hotel which will not even be owned by government. That is aside of the fact that taxpayers' money has been given to him to build a private hotel. You understand? But we are going to say that no, let's channel these tax incentives or exemptions, whatever, to businesses who have the capacity to run 24/7 because there is demand for whatever they produce. So in Ghana, there are companies that are into, say, the processing of various food products, tomatoes, this, that. Those are the people that you need to give them the tax incentives so that they can run 24/7. Because when you give them the tax incentives, their cost of production, their cost of operation comes down and they are able to scale up. So we are going to redirect, streamline, and rate targets tax exemption, the tax exemption regime, and make sure that they go to companies that really need it, primarily Ghanaian-led, Ghanaian-owned companies who have the capacity to run 24 hours and produce more. Yeah, so when you give them a tax exemption, it is nothing novel because already we are doing it. But in this case, the state will be getting the needed dividends because as these businesses operate 24/7, take for example the company that is into the production of, say, biscuits. If they are currently running 8 hours and they're producing, say, 1,000 cartons of biscuit every day, if they run 24/7, chances are that they will produce 3,000 cartons. If they are employing 10 people based on their current one shift of 8 hours, with 24-hour operation, they are likely to employ 30 people. So the tax incentive will be yielding the necessary dividends in the form of increased revenue, because as they produce more, they will be paying more taxes to government on what they are producing. They will be paying the workers, and the workers will also be paying taxes to the government. So the revenue government will be losing through, say, tax incentives comes back to the government in the long run in different shape and form. So that is the whole strategy behind this 24-hour economy we are talking about. You are giving them cheaper tariffs, you are giving them tax incentives to encourage them to run 24/7, to reduce their cost to produce more. But if they produce more, it is more income and therefore more revenue for the government. More workers, that helps government to deal with the problem of unemployment. And once those people are earning salaries, still more income. Let's even zoom into the issue of the time of use tariffs. It simply means a tariff regime where users or consumers of power pay tariffs according to the time of use. So if you use electricity during peak hours, you will pay peak prices. And if you use electricity during off-peak hours, you pay off-peak prices. That is a simple explanation. So you know that in Ghana, we have a peak season where demand for power is so high. But when we all go to sleep by 10, that is the off-peak season. Consumption of power is so low. Do you know that even though the power producers produce power round the clock, we are not able to consume that power during off-peak hours? For example, during night time, because companies and individuals operating and consuming power around that time are very low. And yet we pay for that power. That redundant power, or I think the right word is idle power, we pay for it. Now with the 24-hour economy, even with the cheaper tariffs, okay, you will be encouraging more companies, more businesses to consume that power which would have gone idle in the night. So that without, even though, so that instead of getting nothing for that idle power, at least you get something for that idle power. So it is not only a matter of even increasing revenue through increased production. It's not only an issue of jobs, but it is also an issue of improving efficiency in power consumption. Because as we speak today, very soon people are going to bed. A lot of businesses are closing down. Industries are shutting down because only few are operating 24/7 on their own without any government support. Only few. So power consumption will dip in the night. yet power is being produced. Who is paying for that power? The state. The power is idle. And so if through a deliberate government policy intervention of time of use tariff, government says, look, this power is going waste. Let's encourage more people to work in the night and consume that power. And instead of getting nothing for it, now that they are operating in the night, we'll get something for it. It means that you are improving efficiency. You are increasing even revenue for that power which would have gone idle, that would have gotten nothing for. So yes, there is obviously going to be a cost to the state relative to the implementation of the 24-hour economy strategy. And that cost will come in the form of the tax rebates, the cheaper tariffs, the financing support that will be provided businesses in the private sector. However, the state will be getting far more dividends than we are getting now, in the sense that as the businesses are encouraged to operate round the clock in 3 shifts of 8 hours each, as they operate 24/7, they will be more productive. Production is going to increase. Revenue is going to increase. The GDP is going to grow. Our GDP becomes bigger, then the debt to GDP ratio then decreases. The debt becomes sustainable. You're able to create jobs and you're able to see sustainable and productive economic growth. So that would be my answer to the questions Austin asked.
Okay. One last question from me, Sammy. Your biggest opponent, Dr. Mahmoud Baumia, has said that, quote, it's already happening, and that you can't legislate or say you are bringing something that is already happening. And for businesses to do this, they will do it on their own when they believe that uh, their market share has to rise or there is demand for it. They will do it on their own. How do you respond to that? And secondly, it is tied into your response. Is there a marketing plan? Because some of the responses I've heard some of your people talk about is demand can also be induced. It's not always people have to demand. You can induce demand. So is there a marketing plan also to help these Ghanaian-owned businesses who would be producing local products so that the demand as is induced in us, the Ghanaian people would want to buy made in Ghana goods, because it would also be a strategy that it would help the industries that you would be helping to
Well, I
support.
see 4 questions in one. The first one is on demand. The second
Yeah,
one, no, that's
apologies.
okay. That's perfect. First question on demand. The second one is on, is already happening. The third one is you can't legislate it. And I think there is one more. If I forget, you should remind me. Okay, so first of all, let's start with, it's already happening. Let's start with that one. Alaji Bawumia says 24-hour economy is already happening. And yet he says it's a bad idea. So if it's a bad idea, why does he say that it's already happening? Why are businesses already implementing something which is a bad idea? Why the businesses are irrational entities? So clearly you see that contradiction and inconsistency. Today in Ghana, there are some businesses running 24 hours. And they are doing that on their own without any governmental support, without any strategy or policy intervention by the government to support them. So what is happening is a few entities running 24 hours by default or by their own choosing or by chance. But that is not what the NDC is preaching. What we are preaching is not a 24-hour economy strategy, which is going to be a chance event. What we are preaching is a deliberate government strategy and intervention. Big difference. So the fact that some businesses like Coca-Cola are already running 24 hours should tell you that they themselves know that there is demand for what they produce. And they know that 8 hours is not enough for them to meet that demand. And so they are doing 24 hours. But what is the government intervention and strategy to support Coca-Cola to run 24 hours? That is where Mohammed's 24-hour economy strategy comes in. That if Coca-Cola on their own can run 24 hours, then with governmental support, through tax incentives, through time of use tariffs, which will give them cheaper power for the power they consume in the night, through financing support and other measures, then they will be able to operate 24 hours seamlessly at a reduced cost and employ more people. Because if you talk to Coca-Cola today, they will tell you that their headache is that they cannot compete with cheaper imports. There are a lot of Coca-Cola products today which are being imported into Ghana. And because the cost of production of Coca-Cola Ghana is so high, they are not able to compete. They will be happy that Maha is coming on board 24-hour economic strategy, because now they will not be left to fend for themselves. Now government is saying, I'm coming to your aid with tax incentives, with cheaper power to reduce your cost of operation so that you will be better supported to run 24 hours and employ more people. So the fact that some businesses are already operating 24 hours is proof positive that the 24-hour economy strategy is an imperative, it is necessary, and businesses need it. That's why they themselves are striving without any government support to run 24 hours. So inherent in that so-called criticism is the answer Bawumia and his ilk need. That's number one. Then they say that you can't legislate it. Government policies, with the exception of taxes, are not legislated. When the NPP said they were doing one district, one factory, forget about the fact that they later amended it, okay, and decided to do something totally different from what they promised when we were in opposition, which had to do with converting existing factories into 1D1F based on certain support that government gave them. But this is my point. When they said they were doing 1D1F, did they pass a law to legislate it? When they said they were planting for food and jobs, did they pass a law to legislate it? So, government policies are not legislated all the time, with the exception of, say, taxes or the regulatory framework of the policy. The regulatory framework for the 24-hour economic strategy would be legislated through the First of its kind Employment Act. But the policy itself as a strategy will not be legislated as compulsory for every business. Even in New York, the city that never sleeps, not every business runs 24/7. So if the business has no need for running 24/7, there will not be any need. So it is not, but that does not necessarily make the policy bad, because government is supposed to create the enabling environment for businesses to thrive. And in creating that enabling environment, you don't legislate it. But the businesses are rational entities. They are in business to make profits. That can't say, Obi any wo chi for asem pakodo. And if they know that if I sign up to 24-hour economy, I will have a reduced cost of operation because of cheaper power, because of tax incentives, because of financing support. And they know that with that, they can produce more and there is demand for what they produce. They will take advantage of it. That goes without saying. You don't have to legislate it, because they are rational entities and they are not in business for fun. They are in business for profit. And this is what they are all yearning for. And so if government would do that for them, why are businesses relocating from Ghana today to nearby neighboring countries like Togo, Burkina, Nigeria, and the rest? Today, Big Pen has left Ghana, Glovo has left, Jumia Foods has left, that Nivea body cream has left, Dark and Lovely has left. All these businesses have left Ghana. Why? Because of the high cost of doing business. And a government comes and says, look, I'm doing 24-hour economy strategy. All of you with a capacity to run 24/7 because there is demand for your services and your products. I'm giving you cheaper power. I'm giving you tax incentive. I'm giving you financing support through the Exim Bank that John Maham established. These businesses will say, oh, you have to legislate it before we join. Is that what they are saying? It doesn't even make common sense. They will be happy that they have a government that now cares about them, a government that is interested in significantly reducing the cost of doing business. So that is also a very flawed, argument. Then the issue of demand. Right from the outset of this conversation, I kept on stressing on demand, 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 because the whole essence of 24-hour economy is productivity and increased productivity and production. And who are you producing for? You must produce for a market. So the demand must be there. But you see, even before we talk about stimulating demand, there is demand in Ghana already. Why is it that day in, day out, you go to the people are bringing in goods every day. They are bringing in poultry. They are bringing in processed fish. They are bringing in processed tomato, oil, tiles, cement, roofing sheets. They are bringing in all these things, toothpaste. Why are they bringing in all that? Flour. Why are they bringing in? If there is no demand. Because there is demand. Yadeba ni ato, yadeba ni ato, yadeba ni ato. So they always go back and bring in the produce, the products, either from African countries or from China or from wherever. So the demand is there. So we are saying that for those things that demand already exists for them, Ghana has the comparative advantage to produce some of them. And so why don't we support the few businesses in Ghana who are already producing some of those things but at a very low rate to produce more? And how can they produce more if they are running 8 hours? This thing is so simple. We have demand for, go to Akomadan and see. There is a lot of tomatoes there, which always go bad because we are not investing in tomato processing. Go to Fetenta in Brikum. They have huge capacity for tomato production, but no processing factory for them. John Mahama says he's going to establish agro processing zones in every region, and we are going to produce things that the region produces, that we are going to process things that the region produces that they have a comparative advantage for. We'll process it. So in the Bunu East area, we are thinking about cashew processing factories. We are talking about cocoa processing factories, tomato processing factories, gari processing factories, share processing factories, and all that. Why should all these factories run 8 hours? They can run 24 hours. That is what I meant by agro processing. And they can run 24 hours because there is demand for them. People are looking for it to buy. They are not getting. And so people are importing them in. And the reason why people will not even invest in producing more of that in Ghana is that when you produce more of that in Ghana, obianto, because they can't compete with cheaper imports. Because you, the one producing in Ghana, your cost of production is too high. And that is where the 24-hour economy strategy comes in. So then they say, oh, why legislate something which already exists? So why is it that London has now come up with a 24-hour economy strategy? Why has Sydney done same? Why has New York done same? Before London thought of a 24-hour economy strategy, were there not businesses in London already running 24/7? There were many businesses already running 24/7. But they didn't say that because a few are already running 24/7, then we don't need any deliberate government strategy to encourage more people to do that. Because like that can say, Namdodo same coin. If a few are doing it, it should tell you the potential that exists. It should tell you that they themselves recognize that there is a need for them to operate for more hours so that they can produce more to meet demand. And never believe them when they say that, oh, if there is demand, the businesses themselves will run 24 hours. If there is demand for most of the things that the businesses I mentioned as having relocated from Ghana, there is demand for what they produce. Why have they left Ghana? They've left Ghana because they are not being competitive. They are not profitable. Cost of doing business is so high. So you need a 24-hour economic strategy to reduce, to address the challenges that these businesses have in operating 24 hours on their own to make it easy for them.
Okay, Kali, I think I'm okay with this first section of the conversation.
Okay, thank you very much. So I think let's head into oral Operation Recover All Loot. What are some of the plans the NDC has to ensure this policy works? And is the NDC going to work with the Office of the Special Prosecutor to make sure Operation Recover All Loot becomes sustainable?
Emphatically, yes. We will be working with all anti-corruption agencies and bodies. You see, the bane of this country is corruption, profligacy, and wastage. That is one of the biggest problems confronting our nation, where the privileged few have been given the opportunity to govern and to lead see that as an opportunity to enrich themselves at the expense of the vulnerable and the ordinary man. That is our problem. If you pick the Auditor General's reports and you look at the monies, the billions of monies that we are losing as a country to financial irregularities, corruption, and so on, you will for Ghana. And so, President Mahama, having served this nation throughout his adult life as MP, as deputy minister, as minister, as vice president, and as president, recognizes the need for us as a country to protect the public purse in sincerity and not as a cliche or a slogan, and to punish those who abuse that public purse in accordance with law to serve as a deterrent to others. Yes, corruption has been with us since the days of Adam, like Ofo said, but let's all be frank with ourselves. The alarming levels of corruption we are seeing today is unprecedented. And something has to be done. There has to be accountability. There has to be justice. And our solution to that as a political party is Operation Recover All the Loot, a deliberate government initiative which will bring together all the anti-corruption agencies together to go after people who have abused the public purse, amassed wealth by misappropriating public resources. The emphasis is not just on the prosecution, because as for prosecuting persons who have engaged in one corrupt act or the other, it is not new. But what is new about oral is the emphasis. The emphasis is on the retrieval of stolen funds, because it is not enough to prosecute wrongdoers. As important as that is, we need to retrieve the stolen funds. It's very important for developmental purposes. And so there will be an oral task force, and the special prosecutors representative will be there. All the agents, the police will be there, you there, the president representatives will be there. And we will be going through all the corruption scandals, from the Bossgate scandal, where 5 million liters of contaminated fuel were sold in breach of the public procurement law, and till date, the state has not received the proceeds of that illegal transaction, to the PDS scam, where over 2 billion cedis of light bills paid by Ghanaians have been misappropriated by a fraudulent entity called PDS, leading to the state losing $190 million, even from the Americans. We will investigate that. The Nash Cathedral disgrace, where over 339 million cedis has been pumped into a project with nothing to show on the ground, not even a completed foundation. We need to find our money. Where did the money go? Who were the people who were paid? The charismatics, the consultants who were paid for no work done. We need to retrieve all those monies. Imagine the hospitals these money could have built. These monies could have built. The job creation ventures these monies could have been used for the benefit of all Ghanaians and not the select few. So the corruption scandals are endless. We paid $12 million under the stinky botched Ejapa scam, which didn't even materialize. We paid $12 million. We need to retrieve that money. We paid another $12 million for the Pualugu multipurpose dam. And today you go there, dam, there is nothing on the site. Yet $12 million has been paid. We paid huge sums of money to a company called SML for no work done, billions of cedis. The KPMG report is there, clear, black and white. They were not deserving of that payment, yet they have been paid. We need to retrieve that money. So there are many, many scandals. And if you check our manifesto, we've led them. And we said that oral will be implemented within our first 90 days in office. It is part of John Mahama's 120-day social contract. And we will go after all those thieves, those who have stolen monies, those who have stolen lands, those who have stolen other state assets. We will retrieve them for the state and we will prosecute them. And the sword will cut both ways. We are not only going after past officials or officials of the NPP. No, we will be going after all government officials and public servants, including NDC members, including even the public servants, some of whom also engage in these corrupt acts, leading to financial irregularities and financial losses to the state and so on. We will make sure that we go after all of them. Nobody will be spared. And like President Mahama has said, this sword will cut both ways. So that is what oral is about. And it is the more reason why Ghanaians must vote for change, because a vote for Bawumia is an endorsement of the obscene corruption and state capture we have seen in the last 8 years. If you vote, you are saying to Bawumia and the NPP that we are happy with how you have stolen state funds in the last 8 years. Our lands, look what they have done to our lands at AU Village, cantonments, the state lands, that Shemota Forest, that they have now willed to their associates and family members and so on. Look at what they have done. Look at how they have grabbed state assets. To vote for these people is to express a vote of confidence in them and to say that thank you, we are happy with the state capture and plutocracy you have subjected this nation to. And that is the more reason why we cannot vote for them. We have to vote for change. Because Bawumia cannot come and investigate himself. He cannot come and investigate his boss, Akufo. He cannot come and investigate the very people that he together with them to rape the public purse and engage in all these corrupt acts. He's part and parcel of the mess. At the end of the day, it is the same NPP. We have seen what the NPP is capable of in the last 8 years. They will never prosecute their own because for them, it is about them. Their party needs money. So they don't care whether it is about miss excavators or tricycles. They don't care. They just don't care. You understand? So we need to stop this impunity. And the way to stop it is to vote for change. For a new leader to come. A man who can say that he is tried and tested. Because he served this nation, like I said, throughout life. And no evidence of wrongdoing or corruption has been established against him in any of the positions he served. Whether as MP or vice or minister or president, there's been not even a scintilla of evidence to suggest that John Mahama engaged in any form of corruption. And that is why today he remains squeaky clean. And so, having gone through that process of accountability, he can take others through that process as well. If for nothing at all, investigated by the special prosecutor. and he came out squeaky clean. And so he can also take people through that same process. And so our surest bet of getting justice, probity, and accountability lies in voting for change. It is only when a new regime comes that transparent and genuine investigations can be conducted into the numerous and countless of corruption scandals we have witnessed since 2017. It is only when that happens that we can see genuine prosecutions and retrieval of stolen state funds and assets for the benefit of the people.
Thank you very much. Austin, do you have something more to ask?
Yeah. I need to ask more because this is very key. Okay, Sammy. So, for political watchers, during the 2008 elections, Ghana found itself in a similar situation. The NDC had been in opposition for 8 years. The NPP had a president who had served for 8 years and was leaving. And one of the campaign messages of the NDC was President Kufuor, who had come to power on the back of zero tolerance for corruption, in his first 6 months had said that he's realized corruption is from Adam and that it would be difficult to have a zero tolerance, but we can reduce the corruption levels in our country. Corruption was very key in the NDC 2008 campaign. You made similar promises. NDC wins power. The Ghanaian people will vote for you. You come to power. Of all the things you had told us the Kufuor government and his appointees had done, there was not a single prosecution, successful prosecution. Former Deputy Foreign Affairs Minister Kwesi taken to court over a rice matter, set free. Asabi, current chieftaincy minister, on his way outside with his wife, stopped at the airport, created a whole scene, went to court, nothing, unsuccessful. Gyamfi and Tarzan over Ghana at 50. The government made a rookie mistake. They challenged it that if they have gone to a commission of inquiry, their testimony there cannot be used against them in the prosecution. They are set free. Not a single successful prosecution. Why should we trust you this time if I am voting based on oral?
Well, you can trust us this time because the NDC of 2008, 2009 is not the NDC of 2024. We now have the benefit of hindsight, and we have a leader by far is the most experienced political leader that Ghana has ever had. He's been there before. He knows why we got things wrong. He knows what accounted for some of the things you have pointed out. And coming back with that benefit of hindsight, you can be rest assured that things will be done differently. You see, happy you acknowledge that the ex-Wall NDC Mayor's administration actually prosecuted several of Kufuor appointees. Some of them were found to have engaged in corrupt acts, like the Kojo PNEs and all that, in the case of the Ghana 50. The only challenge was the platform that was used. A platform of a commission of inquiry was used. And it was the first time in the criminal jurisprudence of Ghana that the government or the state has sought to prosecute someone on the basis of findings of a commission of inquiry. Little did we know that the court was going to hold through Mafusal, Justice of the High Court, that you cannot anchor a criminal prosecution on the basis of the findings of a commission of inquiry, because the commission has the same powers of a high court, and the findings of the commission are punitive. And so because of the principle against double jeopardy, or double punishment once adverse findings have been made against a person by a commission of inquiry. You cannot prosecute the person again. It was on this technical ground that those people were left off the hook. But sometimes the impression is created as though no one was prosecuted at all, or that not even one person was found to have engaged in wrongdoing. It is not true, and I'm happy that you have pointed that out. Another reason that accounted for what you are today talking about is the fact that at the time the NDC was led by the late Professor Blessed Mabry, who was known for peace, reconciliation, and unity. There were many corrupt officials of the Kufuor NPP era who had to be prosecuted. They ought to have been prosecuted, in my humble opinion. But, I mean, you speak to others today, they will tell you that the good old prof felt that we should let it slide. It's all about Ghana. He needs unity. He needs reconciliation. And so let's pardon them and let's start off from a clean slate. I mean, President Mahama has even stated that on public record as the main reason why some of those guys were not prosecuted. But I think that you will agree with me that that style of father for all and we want peace, we want unity and all that can no longer hold in Ghana. I mean, the people of Ghana today are clamoring for change for one major reason: accountability. And any government that takes that away from the people will have itself to be blamed. And so I am very clear in my mind that His Excellency John Dramani Mahama not adopt the same posturing that was adopted in the year 2008. The peaceful, reconciliatory, father for all posturing. I don't think you are going to see that in 2025. And that is why he's been very clear on oral. We want accountability. So you are right in saying that going by our history, you have your doubts, okay? But I say to you that that is in the past, and let's leave that in the past, and let's look at the future. John Dramani Mahama is not that father for all. He of course he will be father for all. He will be present for everybody in that context, but not father for all in the context of forgiving persons who have engaged in clear acts of corruption because of the fact that we need unity in Ghana or we need reconciliation. I've spoken to him. I know he's very passionate on this subject of accountability. In fact, he himself has been a subject of accountability. He's been investigated by the special prosecutor relative to the Airbus matter. And so if he can be investigated like that, and then I don't think that he will shield anybody from going through the same process of accountability. And when he was president, he demonstrated that. He prosecuted his own friend and appointee, Abuga Pele, in the Jida matter, which led to a conviction. I mean, we all like it when we talk about this matter. It gives all of us pain because this is one of our own. We knew him. But President Mahama said, let the law take its course. When the Jida matter became public, he allowed for investigations. The report was published by government. We made it public. And he directed his attorney general. We had no special prosecutor at the time. His own attorney general was the one who prosecuted. And convictions made. So you can trust President Mahama to bite the bullet
Yeah,
and to take
Sammy,
whatever action that he has to take to ensure that
that was what
people actually pay for their crimes. Yes.
I was coming to your last point, and it's brilliant because President Mahama himself has said that he's warning his appointees. Oral will cut both ways. And you've given an example of when he was president and a decision he took to prosecute his own colleague, former member of parliament, and an appointee. But we are also not oblivious of the fact that during his own tenure, a former minister of transport gave a contract for buses to be branded. It became a huge debate in Ghana, and the chief of staff then, Julius Deborah, set up a committee that was chaired and headed by then Attorney General, Madame Marietta Brew. The Attorney General's report to the chief of staff was the 3.4 million contract was inflated. They were just told to pay back the money, that is Smarties, even though they've paid it back. The late Jifa Ativo just resigned. That time, Ghana had not passed that law where if anybody is involved in corrupt acts and they decide to refund the money, we suspend sentencing for them, or we do not sentence them. It had not been passed. Do you think that that decision that was taken not to prosecute anybody in that matter, it negates the prosecution of or the decision to prosecute Abu Gapele, and that President Mahama decides who to prosecute in his government and who not to prosecute for criminal acts like inflicting a government contract?
Well, I think that the very example you just cited shows that John Mahama is the man we can trust to fight corruption. That John Mahama is nothing like Akufo-Addo or Bawumia. Because, like you rightly pointed out, in the smartest bus branding matter, all the monies paid to the company were refunded to the state. Can you say that of his government? For all the numerous corruption scandals we have witnessed in the last 8 years, can you point even one scandal in which half of the money has been refunded?
Sammy, I'm
This,
looking
this,
for a president who is
no, hold on. So let's go step by step.
Wado.
Let's go step by step.
Okay.
No, let's go step by step. So the first point
Yeah.
it's important to acknowledge that even back then, the monies paid to the company were refunded. That's number one. Number two, apart from the fact that the monies paid were refunded, the minister lost her job. That is accountability. The only missing issue which you are raising is the lack of prosecution. But the point is, was there a ground for prosecution? My answer is no. And that is why I think that the lack of prosecution is not an issue here at all. Because if you remember the facts of the bus branding matter, it was something that the minister herself did not have personal knowledge of. But per the principle of ultimate responsibility, she had to take the fall by resigning. And so you could not place criminal liability on her as a person because she did not sign any inflated contract deal. That is number one. Number two, you can raise another offense relative to the issue of financial loss. But where the amount, which is the subject matter of that financial loss, has been paid to the state, what offense were you going to prosecute her for? Because the state had retrieved the money. And she had not carried out any personal act. The lawyers will tell you that crime is an act in personam. There is no vicarious liability when it comes to crime. So in public administration, you can hold a minister responsible based on the principle of vicarious liability, which is take the ultimate responsibility. You are the boss, the buck stops with you, the contract should not have happened, it has happened. So even though you were not directly responsible for it, take that ultimate responsibility and resign, which happened. The state interest was to retrieve the monies paid to the company. It was retrieved in full. But you could not prosecute her because she herself was not a signatory of any inflated contract. There was no such evidence. And you could not prosecute her for any financial loss through her negligence or recklessness because there was no loss because the money was refunded to the state. So there was no basis for prosecution. The most important thing is that the smartest bus branding scandal shows that John Mahama dealt with corruption effectively under his administration. He ensured that ministers who had any role in any corrupt act, whether directly or indirectly, or were even negligent, had to lose their jobs. He ensured that monies that the state lost were recovered for the state. And that is what we need. That is what oral is about. In fact, we should look at even the Victoria Hammer example. This was a deputy minister of state who did not engage in any corrupt act. She did not engage in any corrupt act. She did not steal government money. She was merely having an unofficial conversation with somebody, a friend, and intimated that should she make $1 million, she will not even be interested in politics again. This was enough to cost her job. You understand? She did not steal a pesewa of state funds, yet this caused her job. That was how high the standard or the standard of accountability was under the Ekwa Mahama government. Yet he was bastardized and demonized. They lied against him and said he was corrupt. Thank God, he said posterity should judge him. And today posterity has vindicated him. 8 years after leaving office, not a scintilla of evidence of wrongdoing or corruption has been established against him by any institution, body or individual, which clearly show that John Dramani Mahama remains squeaky clean, is incorruptible, and therefore has the moral authority to prosecute those who engage in corruption and to retrieve for the state stolen funds.
Okay, Kali, I think I'm okay with section 2.
Okay, thank you very much. So, we'll be going to the listeners to pick a few questions. But before that, I think I got a very interesting question in my DMs, and I'll try my best knowledge to ask it properly. So, he's asking, can you ask Sammy to address what the administration's plan is around the African Continental Free Trade and its link with the Pan-African Payments and Settlement System? The After Secretariat is in Ghana, and the need for its engagement with the proposed transformative economic agenda cannot be underestimated. So I think that is the very first question. After that, we'll go to the audience to pick the questions. You guys have like 2 minutes to ask your questions. We'll pick 3 people at a time, and then all the 3 questions will be answered, and then we'll go to the next set of people. So please send your request, and we can get going now.
Yeah. Am I supposed to answer that question?
Yeah.
The